Hello, coders. Today we're going to be talking about when to say no to projects. This has been inspired by a discussion on the Discord server. So I just want to give a massive thank you to the people of the pro user Discord channel on the howtocodewell.net/Discord server for coming up with this idea. I've been a developer for 20 years. I've been a freelance developer for a long time in that, and there are projects where I perhaps regret doing. There are projects where I will just say no to. And it's taken me this long to create a kind of like a scoring system, I guess, in my head as to whether or not I want to say yes or say no to particular projects. And we're going to be talking about those things. I'm going to be talking about it from the perspective of a freelancer. All right, so let's lay down some context. So I'm a freelancer, and when I started, there was all sorts of projects that I did that haven't seen the light of day, right? Bit of a mistake to do them, to be honest. We'll talk about those, I guess, in just a second. I guess we can break this down into some categories. The first one is technology. So if the technology doesn't fit with your kind of specialism, then don't do it, because you're going to be spending so much time learning than coding and actually creating and developing and building. So the amount of emails I get from people, saying, do you know .NET? Do you know C#? Do you know Java? Do you know Xcode, Ruby, all of that good stuff? Yeah, I'm aware of it. Yeah, I've done a bit of it, but I wouldn't say it would be my specialism, and therefore I will either look to my network to see if there are any developers who could do that if the project is interesting, or if I sense that the email is just sort of a carpet bomb of other developers, then I'll delete it. I don't want to waste my time learning technology just for a particular project when I have other clients in other projects to work on. And I guess the sort of underlying theme here is having a niche. So you're working on, you're sort of carving down your specialism. In my case, it's PHP, Python, JavaScript. I'm a full stack dev. So the C, the Java, the Xcode, those kind of things, I am happy not to do. The next thing that I would just be very cautious on is perhaps if the project doesn't fit with the kind of mission that you, or principles that you have. So I've been asked to do websites for betting sites. I've been asked to work on pornography sites. I've been asked to work on money lending sites, and that doesn't make me comfortable to do that because of the context of the projects. So I will say no to those. However, I can appreciate and I can understand the developers who work in those kind of industries, because they're very, very challenging. They have their own unique challenges. For example, the pornography stuff, that system required a level of performance. They had some scalability issues, all sorts of interesting stuff from a technical point of view. I appreciate that those kind of challenges are very appealing to developers, and some developers actually specialize in caching and performance and scalability. So why not? The money lending, so this is an interesting story, and I've got to be careful because I have to anonymize projects and clients and so forth. I know that clients watch these things, so I've got to be careful. There was one interesting project that we had a discussion on the phone, and it was for a ridiculous amount of money, the most amount of money that I've ever seen for a developer position. It was crazy amounts of money being thrown, and I can see how that becomes quite interesting to developers. If you're money orientated, and to be fair, if you're money orientated, I've got no problem with that, right? If you're money orientated, by all means, that's fine. It was the context that made me feel uncomfortable, and so I made more excuses, and then I eventually just shut it down and said no. And then you've got the gambling, and then you've got the other sort of industries that They just don't sit right. And I've spoken to many freelancers, some in fact on the podcast here, and they have chosen specific niches. They found specific industries that they work within. So they won't even consider these things, or they won't consider e-commerce stuff because they're more interested in other bits and pieces, which is great. And that's something that I would highly recommend, is to, once you're established, find a niche, find a particular industry that you can work within, and do that very well. Know that industry like the back of your hand. I want to now shift the discussion, if I may, to junior devs or devs who are coming into the industry, because there are particular projects that I've done in the past that from a business point of view, they've been real bad, right? Real bad business moves. However, they've given me a level of experience and exposure to certain mistakes that I've made, and I needed to have that going forward. I needed to have that experience going forward to harden myself for clients in the future. So here I'm talking about projects where a client would say something like, look, I don't have any capital up front. Well, all I have is an idea, essentially. I have an idea for an app. I have an idea for this particular website. I think it's going to do well, and I think it's going to make a lot of money. I can offer you a percentage of the sales after it's gone live, or I can offer you a partnership or something, some sort of incentive to actually do it. But the actual development time of you doing it, I can't pay you for. As it stands at the moment, as a freelancer right now, I do not have time for those at all, because I need to keep the current clients happy, the paying clients. I can't work on something that I'm not going to be paid for straight away if I've got paying clients already. I just can't do that. However, when you're new to this industry, you don't have any clients, right? And you don't have a portfolio. So when these things come to you, they can actually be more appealing, because the value of having a project on your portfolio is far more than not having one, right? With an established freelancer, they obviously have a portfolio. But if you don't have a portfolio to begin with, then that becomes very valuable, because that's starting your reputation. Just be very cautious, though, very, very cautious, please, about taking projects like this on, because as the client hasn't got a system, a piece of software running at the moment, they have no incentive to actually put it live, in the sense of they have this idea, they have a dream, that is the thing that they're holding on to. They don't have any customers right now to appease. It's a very different story when you're working on a project that's already out there and you're putting on an upgrade, or you're doing something to it, you're fixing a bug, or you're maintaining, or what have you, because there is already an established customer base. So this means that a client can walk away from these kind of projects, which means that you can also walk away from these kind of projects as well. But I would highly recommend to not be naive like I was when I started, because there were many things that I did which were my fault, that gave the client a little bit more, shall we say, reach than they should have had. So a lot of scope creep happened. A lot of me trying to please the client happened. A lot of me thinking that the client was doing me a favor happened. And you shouldn't be thinking like that. You shouldn't be thinking like that at all. When it comes to business, there needs to be things in place. And if you're doing any kind of work where there isn't any money up front, but there might be money later on, get those things down in writing. And when I say in writing, I don't mean just in an email. I mean on a piece of paper with signatures on it, something that you can take to court, essentially. So be very, very cautious of those things. However, I do appreciate, and I do know from experience, how attractive those things are when you are starting out. So another thing I would look out for is personality traits. So we as freelancers, we work with clients, human beings. Human beings have emotions. Human beings have opinions. Human beings have personalities that can either be great or really, really bad. And if their personality stinks, if their personality grates on you, if it clashes with your personality, then it's okay to say no. If you have a gut feeling in a conversation that, this isn't going to work out, then back away from it. It's okay to say no, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have this additional stress. As coders, we write code for humans. We have to interact with those humans, work with that. I'm a remote developer as well, right? So I work best when the client has already worked with remote developers. It's a bit of a culture change if the clients haven't had any kind of remote experience, because you as a remote developer have to kind of educate the client that remote developers can actually do work. So that can become a bit challenging sometimes. However, I mean, the clients that I've got at the moment are fantastic, right? They're brilliant because they know how I work. I know how they work. The work ethic is great. It makes sense. And right now, I have to say that I'm extremely happy with how things have gone. If you had asked me this about 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have been so green and so sort of naive and so sort of junior and young that at the time I would have thought everything was fantastic. But looking back on it now, there was so much time wasted. There was so much code that I wrote that never saw the light of day. It was just not great. It's just not great. However, I've learned from it. I've experienced it. And that's the point that I will kind of want to end on, is that don't kick yourself when you look back on these things and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. That's not how it's supposed to be. These are experiences. I think everybody needs to experience good and bad clients, because you don't know what a bad client is or a bad project, I should say, until you get one, right? And it's how you deal with that. That is the thing that pushes you forward, hardens you for the next one, right? And allows you to identify things in perhaps the role description, the conversations you have, the flags that you can identify to say, no, not this time, sorry, and move on. And it's okay to do so. I want to end this by thanking everybody on the Discord server, especially in the Pro Users channel, the Patreons and the Twitch subscribers, for coming up with these suggestions. I can talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and I can go down many different avenues and tangents. And if you would like me to do so, then I'm more than happy to do. But anyway, thank you ever so much for watching. Happy coding, everyone. I'll see you again in the next one. Cheers. Bye.